Okay, so I have updated the community tab. Please, if you're trying to do a 14-day challenge, if you have questions that have gone unanswered, if you are interested in doing the challenge, if you've heard about it and don't know what it is, please go to istebrak.com and go to the community tab. The community tab right here, if you scroll down, you can find a Q&A for the 14-day challenge. And it's an FAQ and Q&A. Some of these are not FAQ, so I just called it 14-day challenge, FAQ, and Q&A. And the rules are here. I'm going to be updating the rules because some of the questions you guys have are rule-based. Some of them are application-based. So if you are confused about the challenge, if you've, halfway through it, if you're about to start it, if you started it, please read through these. They apply to you directly. Crap, there's a space I didn't fix. And please make sure that you are being as thorough as possible with this. It took me a while to write it today. It took me like about an hour and a half. I finished it right before this session. So please make sure you guys read it. And if you have any more questions about it, I actually have a post up on the Google Plus community. Where is it? In the announcements tab, or actually in the discussion tab of the community, where I ask you guys if you have any 14-day challenge questions, right? That's where I posted it. There it is. What questions do you have about the 14-day challenge? All the questions I answered are from this submission. Please go here and ask some more. If not, if I make any kind of post that I pin on the wall up here, right now it's pinned, but it's not going to be pinned forever. So if you have any more questions, make sure you're asking on this here, all right? And if you guys have answered, thank you to everyone who's answered in the meantime. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for answering those questions for me already. Another announcement is the due date for this challenge. You guys have posted the most beautiful stuff I have ever seen. I don't know why Google Plus is like, I don't know why it's showing me one piece at a time. I really don't. I don't know why it's showing me one piece at a freaking time. Like, come on. Oh my God. There, let me just try to get it so that it shows more than one. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. No? Okay. No, you don't want to do it? I don't want to do it. Okay. So we're going through all the challenge submissions. And some of these are in the wrong spot, so I have to go through these. 14-day challenge is right here. Challenge submission is different from 14-day challenge submission. Crap. So, oh gosh, lots of 14-day challengers posted on the wrong post. Mods, this is what you guys are supposed to be doing. It's okay. So wonderful, wonderful posts. Beautiful stuff. This is exactly what I wanted to see. There are a number of things I could critique, and I'm still deciding whether or not I'll have it as a display, kind of like an exhibition of all the posts, or a full 2-hour critique hour for the posts, and choose the most challenged ones, and then have a a special showcase for the best ones, and then out of those I choose 5 to vote from as the winner, and the winner gets a bunch of stuff. So the challenge is separate from the contest, but I might choose the most difficult, problematic ones and post there. Please remember to post your 14-day challenge to the 14-day challenge category and not challenge submissions. I understand the confusion, and I will have to rename this somehow. It's hard to choose a name. It's just monthly challenge submissions or design challenge. Probably I should call it that. This is not what happened. This is me being very confused. Oh my God. I get it. I'm sorry. I get it. No, the mods didn't do anything wrong. This is all me. You guys just witnessed one of the biggest brain farts in history. I thought I was... It's okay. It's okay. Just move on. Beautiful stuff. My God. Look at this. Ignore what I just did and just look at this. Wow. 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 This brought out like the designer in you guys. This is amazing stuff. Holy crap. Like, there's 200 submissions in here. I shouldn't have asked for 500 votes, but this is a lot of stuff to go through. I will go through some. I will actually paint over, so that's going to be there. I do see a couple of issues already that I'll have to talk about, which will be just really, really easy. And then we'll talk about character design principles, the best stuff about character design, how to make sure that it's the best delivery, the best presentation. All that stuff, we'll recap on all of that, but it'll pretty much be a big showcase of your success. All of you guys will have a moment in the light to just talk about. We'll be talking about what you know, the choices you made, and how you know, how it relates back to the narrative and all of that. But it's pretty much going to be just a big me showing off my students kind of post, with some moments of critique. That way we can fill as many submissions as possible within the 2 hours. And that's it. Other than Patreon, if you guys want to be patrons, even just as watchers, you guys that have that option for you. If you want to see more of these challenges, the challenge after this one will probably be live 2 months from now, or maybe in a month I'll announce it, or maybe I will already send out a poll that will last a month, and then I will, you know, write up something for you guys after the poll is done. If you're new here, just ask around. Everyone will explain what you need. And if you're confused about when the poll will go up, when the next challenge is going to be up, what a 14-day challenge is, and where the questions are answered for the 14-day challenge, always link people back to the community tab and tell them to scroll down to the 14-day challenge Q&A. All right, let's get started on today's critique. Let me see what I want to start off with. I want to start off with this old fella. This is an ex-student of mine. I don't know why I say ex-student. I don't know. This was once one of my students long ago. Her name is Emily, and she's very, very talented. Very young, too, to be, you know, attempting this really, really high-rendered stuff. Probably 16 or 17. I really forget, but just wonderfully talented. So I did promise her I'd critique her last piece of homework, and there's a number of issues here. So when we're lifting something up, what happens to our shoulder? Does our shoulder go up when something is heavy pulling it down? No, it's in the opposite direction. So what I don't want to do is mess around with liquefy. So what I'm actually going to do here is just switch the shoulders. Do some fancy surgery. All right, I'm going to switch the shoulders, and I'm doing this because there's really, I'm just going to be, you know, I already have them pre-rendered and placed exactly where they need to be. But when you're designing a figure like this, and there is an active kind of, an object actively, you know, part of this entire, like, gesture, it's part of the character, the gesture is the character. When you have all of that mess, you really want to include the prop in the gesture. So you know how you guys are doing gestures and you don't apply clothes, you don't even apply face detail, but you're just drawing the new gesture. Well, if it's a really, really like interactive kind of positioning of everything, if it has an sorry, I'm really messed up right now. If it's an interactive prop, if everything is positioned around a prop, that has to be drawn in with the gesture. Okay, so now things are a little bit more accurate. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not I want to take this route, and whether or not I want to, because one shoulder has to be lower than the other. I'm going to leave these layers, try this. If it fails, I'll try something else. But the shoulder that is carrying the heavy object has to be low. You would not have factored that in if you drew it without the suitcase. You drew the original thumbnail or gesture without the suitcase. So include the prop in the gesture because it helps you identify exactly what to do with the gesture. You don't know if the shoulder should be low or high if there's no prop in there when you're factoring the gesture, when you're factoring the spine, what to do with the shoulder symmetry and the arms. So he's supposed to be big and Scroogey and mean looking. He's got very long arms. So Emily, you're still having issues with the long arm. You're still having issues with the long body, but you've definitely fixed the small head problem. His head definitely feels like it fits right into his body type and you know, general girth. Is that like a funny word to use, girth? Can I use that around kids and not have them giggle? I'm just doing this. So he's supposed to be a big old grouch. Right, so he's carrying something, and he's supposed to have a higher kind of, I feel like I've lost a discrepancy here between his shoulders. So I might have to use one of the shoulders I selected. Yeah. And just grab this fella, post him there. And this is starting to turn into Frankenstein's monster. Okay, and I'm just trying to seam all this in. So yeah, you guys saw my face. What do you think about that? I'm not sure if I'm ready to post up a recording of my face. But I am ready to show it in streams again after that debacle with the creep that took my face screenshot and posted up on Facebook, and I swore I would never show my face during Critique Hour ever again. He wouldn't take it down until I threatened him legally, so you're not allowed to do that on the internet, by the way. That's illegal. So yep, just got that Scroogey shoulder going on, and I'm going to lower the head beneath the shoulder line. Why do we not want to see, can anyone tell me why in the silhouette do we not want to see the neckline? Why does the neckline have to be hidden? What does the neckline say about a character and a character's gesture? Okay, so he's got to be haunched forward and a little bit more grouchy looking. Oh, thank you. I can thank my mom for that. Actually, my dad has that. I was gonna say my dad has nipples. My dimples are thanks to my dad. My dad has dimples. Big grouchy fella, but it's got big ass dimples. Not nipples. God damn it, it's class. It's the right shit. I'm so sorry, my mods. Please, you guys, move on. Get over it. Let's go. I'm so sorry, mods. I'm so sorry. Alright, so it's a bit like when you read a book and have a face for all the characters and then they make a move with people that don't look like it at all. Not bad, just a bit odd. It's a bit weird. They are skinny, young, confident. Yes, exactly. They seem like they're skinny, young, confident. I get what you mean though, Kira. Wanting to see the horizon. Yeah, it's like they're standing up straight even though they had... and if it says they're grumpy or timid rather than confident or prideful, exactly, yeah, exactly. So it feels like they're confident and prideful. He doesn't seem timid, he just seems old, so that old feeling when the character is kind of just haunched forward either with the weight of experience and age, or you know, the weight of the world and burdens, or he's just, his hatred for and contempt for life is so high that it sways down his head or his shoulders. Okay, so he's got some kind of grouchiness. I don't want it to read as like an extensive, you know, like a problem or a hunchback. Really not in my game today, but that's okay. Keep going. And then I'm just tucking this in. And then the legs I have to align back and shorten those. And then just tuck that down. At the end of the day, I think you have not factored in that you need a 3/4 view completely, because the legs are facing a different direction. The body's facing a different direction. I would recommend you move the body to match the legs, because that's just so much more intriguing what's happening with the legs. So I might just make this 3/4 view after I'm done, do some more stitching, and see what I can do. I need to straighten the arm so that it feels, because when something is dragging you down, can you really bend your elbow? No, you kind of just have to lift the heavy, stupid suitcase as it straightens your arm down. So that means we have to completely straighten the arm and have it beside the body. And again, that's another thing that you would have factored in if you drew the arm holding the suitcase in the gesture line stage. Okay, so it's nice and tucked in on the side of his body. And then now we gotta do the 3/4 view. So this is gonna be tricky as all hell. So let me see what I can do. I'm gonna sever the head. I am going to see if I can select this separately. And then just shift the symmetry line over. So it reads more as a 3/4 view. Probably shouldn't have erased the other part of the arm. And this 3/4 view will kind of complete the missing aspect here, and kind of just align the symmetry line of the waistcoat or the coat with the hem, like at the symmetry line of his legs, so that it actually feels like everything is turned equally in 3/4 view, because it's easier to rotate a head to look in the different direction from the body than it is to rotate the body and not match the torso with the legs. Okay, so the torso and the legs are harder to rotate than the body is. I mean, than the head is. Shit, I'm so sorry. All right, so let me see what I need to do here. This is going to be very, very tough. I don't want him to look too proud, but he kind of looks like a snob though, right? So I just want to make him look a little less proud, less of a proud chest, more flattened, but still 3/4 view, meaning one side is more visible than the other. And then of course the head has to push back over here. Might enlarge the head just a little bit. Okay. His hairstyle is just a little bit off. I mean, I've seen men with this hairstyle, but kind of feels like you're not really pushing his personality enough with that hairstyle, which feels very playful. It's the kind of hairstyle I would give a really, really old yoga instructor who's kind of loves life but is really, really old. Like, this is what I would give him. Maybe something a little bit longer, but definitely the same. You know what I'm saying? It seems like this guy would have a little bit more of a shortened hairstyle or something a little bit more angry. Something angry means something squared. So definitely more of a jock head type, but still very angular, but still intelligent. And then the missing ears, which need to be a little bit large around the lobes because of old age. Okay, and then there's the placement of the legs. So a lot of stitching, Emily, which means that you didn't have enough time spent in your gesture lines. So you can render, and you've improved so much with your rendering since our first session, but I really recommend you start being a little bit more careful with what the intention is, or what the story is, or what the role is for each gesture. If there are props, factor them in early. Okay, so just a couple more changes. I need to shorten the legs a little bit. And we're shortening the legs so that he feels a little bit less athletic. So lots and lots of stitching. And you'll see the before, which was really had very, very little continuity between each section. The arms are still very, very long. I would enlarge the head to be even bigger and even lower. But the head rotation now is fine, even though it's not the same as the rest of the body. This kind of seems okay. Very dwarfish, very goblin-y. All right, large head. So before, oh, whoopsie. So let me just flip the canvas and do my after. So before, do you see that? Very long. I mean, if you wanted to make him a long guy, a long old man, which are so much fun to draw, because the gesture is so much longer, but it's also old, so it's so much more intriguing. The form line, the shape language, and the gesture language is there's so much variety. It's old, the longer nose, the silly head shape, the pressure to not make anything beautiful. It's all there, but it felt like you were going for something a little bit more along the lines of this. And then if we had a character lineup for these old bankers, and kind of did a little something to pay attention, everyone. Kind of did a little something like this. I'm so sorry, Mr. Antares. I'm so sorry, Professor Antares. Please forgive me. Don't fire me from the program. All right. You know, then we could have had a long dude who had very long features. Right now he feels very big, so we have to kind of shrink and lengthen at the same time. And at this point, yeah, you can show the neck, but the neck would have to be so stretched off. They kind of look like twins. Just like one is a little bit taller than the other. Actually, no, that's not twins. What am I saying? You know, more tucked in, inward C shapes for anyone who's skinny, outward C shapes for anyone who's a little bit chubby. You see that? So the inward C shape is how you get that scrawny look. Funny, oversized jacket. Just like that. Come on. I know you can do it, Liquify. I know you have the power. Alright, inward C shapes. Everywhere you go. Throw that inward C shape for the lanky character. So see how I'm doing it here? I'm doing it here. That's how you get a skinny character out. See how he's got an outward C shape here for his pants? Well, we're going to do it an inward C shape, and he's going to look scrawny. Of course, there's still all the rotation issues I fixed initially in this one. Maybe I should have just copy-pasted this one. Yeah, it looks like she rendered the shoes. Yeah, Emily was really, she's always been very, very good with her photo studies. Very, very good. She just needs a little bit more planning so she can be top-notch, especially at her age. It's like she's a prodigy. She does get a little lazy with measurement, but all in all, she was an excellent student to work with. Right. And just to think that a design like this, such a mature character design, came out instead of drawing like pretty little fairies all the time. I find that girls her age just draw all these pretty little fairies all the time, but she definitely tries to go for that, unpopular but really, really maturely interesting character type. She once drew a gymnast in a leotard that she ended in the most ridiculous stuff. I forget what the leotard was. I think it was an animal print leotard. I don't know. She's very, very good. All right, and then a longer forehead, longer face, and then longer inward C shapes here. Inward C shapes wherever you go. Of course, these shoulders have to be switched. But you don't have to be a pro to attempt this, especially if you've graduated your 14-day challenge. In the Q&A you guys will read, you'll see that, that the question, what do I do? I've finished the 14-day challenge, now what do I do? Emily did an extensive study with her portraits, and she perfected her understanding of shadows and how to make a face read from a distance. And then she started, doing gesture drawings and figure studies, and then she tried the character design. So character design is a massive hurdle, and portraiture is a massive hurdle in developing your portfolio. So the next best thing after you're done with all of that is to just go straight into your character design. Do some character design studies of different tropes and see what you can do there. Right, so short and chubby. And remember, we're always exaggerating shapes. The shape language here is really, really exaggerated. So I can even fatten him up, and we've got these two different body types. This one still has all the inherent issues, but at least we're showing the difference in the body type. So you were meeting it somewhere in between. You were somewhere in between these two, especially because of the high shoulder. Maybe he's just awkward. Maybe that's how he stands. Maybe the suitcase wasn't that heavy for him. I'm just going to raise it up, but there's really no point in trying a gesture render if your gesture hasn't blueprinted all of the stuff you're going to be dealing with. So anyone who's joining the challenge, the Ancient Weapon Challenge, if you're not factoring the bow into the gesture and you're just going to have her holding the bow, then that's not going to be successful. You have to factor in the bow in her gesture. So before, after. Right, so this would be the after. Before, after. Okay. Before, after, and then this would be the other body type you're kind of trying to meet in between the two. Especially because of that extensive like neck shape, you had so much space for the neck. Yeah, this neck seems short, but for an old man, it's pretty long. You know, I would say it's pretty long. Unless he's tall, and he's so tall his hunch doesn't even hide his neckline, then, you know, all right. So let's move on to something else. Any questions? Does the right shoulder have to be hidden more? Yeah, definitely. All right. Yeah, it does feel a bit detached. Again, if you're going to have that Danny DeVito as penguin body, then you are, you know, you are dealing with a wider wingspan of the shoulder, starting at the shoulder. So it might not even feel like that shoulder was, it didn't bother me that much. It might have bothered you. It might have bothered you because you're not used to this trope. But if you remember the body type from Penguin, let me just find it in case there's Google search results that get me struck again. Penguin, Danny DeVito. Is that him? It was Danny DeVito, right? Alright, so he's got quite a massive wingspan. See that? How the arm feels like it's completely separate. He just feels like it's out there. Yeah, there was that outer C shape to show the stacking and the rotation, but just remember that this is all starting at a silhouette, so you really have to exaggerate a lot of stuff. You see that? Okay, so all this extra stuff right along here. Seriously, this is the best penguin that ever penguined. There's really nothing better than this. All right, so this is a texture study from a student who was, you know, trying to figure out how to show a chest and study the gold, and there was it felt flat. Well, it felt flat because there's no color theory, and you're not actually representing the color range for each component of the texture study. So the bark, the wood, sorry, and the gold weren't actually having their own. They did not have the right values, okay? I'm sorry. I'm very, very out of it today. So this means that we start off by sponge, desaturate the wood. So you made the wood have all of this gold to it, and that's because it was a golden chest. But the chest isn't golden. It's just gold because to signify importance and to signify that there's a lot of stuff in it, but it's probably copper. It's not actually gold. It contains gold, so you should have left the golden, most gold colors for the interior. Because if you're using all this gold on the outside and you have a bunch of gold on the inside, you still have to draw. I mean, what's the treasure? The treasure chest or the gold inside it? So we're starting off by desaturating this. Next up, we'll desaturate all the shadows. So how do you cool down something that has its value, that has a value that is only visible when it has like proper sunlight? Gold doesn't have a dark tone. Gold at night is just gray, because yellow, there's no such thing as dark yellow. Let's take a look. What does dark yellow look like? So let's find the actual exact value for gold. Let's say the average value for gold, which is all the way up here. Look at the light equivalent. That's almost no man's land values. All right, let's darken towards this edge right here. We can darken to either end, but let's just darken toward this one to be fair. The lower I go, the more like vomit it looks, but especially if I go directly down this way. At least this one has some saturation, starting to look like a very, I don't know, dumb color to wear. No one really wears colors like that. What is this color exactly? Is it pukey green? Is it fart yellow? What is it? It's nothing. There's no actual trope that comes with this color other than ghoulish, mud, swamp, you know, like swamp monster kind of poop, you know? So it's a very waste type color. The only thing I see is just waste. But over here, it's just going directly into gray. And eventually becomes full-on gray. Yeah, it has some color to it. But it's become so comparable to these grays over here. They're so neighboring. So there's no such thing as dark yellow. Absolutely not. It's like saying dark sun. There's no such thing as dark sunlight. What do? You go to the nearest color, which is going to be orange. And that's how you darken. There is a dark orange. It's still a bit pukey, but at least it has some saturation. All right, so this would be the dark value for the yellow. This would be the color you would use, at least the color you would use in the color range, color mode. All right, so let's use that over here. It's bringing us some coolness. See how purple it looks? Just look at how purple that looks compared to the color that's exposed to the light. And I only use that on the gold only. I don't use it everywhere, or else we have a resaturated bark again. Right? And exactly the same, yellow requires a lot of light. So gold requires a lot of light, which means it requires a lot of white. So that means we're choosing a highlighter color that's more white. And this is the color we use. So I think you have some of that already. But this is the color we use on all of these areas here that really spike up. Not sure why you added it to the top part. It should be over here. This and this face in the same direction. And then this faces away. So this arrow and this arrow face the same direction. This is closer to being light than anything else. Right here, this whole area. This one here can get a little bit of that too, because it's facing the same direction. And then, not only is gold annoyingly yellow, not only does it have to have enough white in it, not only does it have to have orange in its shadows, but it's reflective, and it has to have the nearby environment colors reflected on it. So that means we grab the ground color and we just throw that over everything nearby, starting from the ground up. And we kind of radiate that upward. And it should only really be for, you know, the part, the wood gets none of that. All right, so this is reflective over here. So you see all these conditions are very important to keep in mind when you're drawing a, you know, it's always yellow. It's always going to be yellow. That gives you this much trouble. And yellow plus reflective, that's another study all by itself. So you're missing a color study, you're missing some form studies, and you're missing a texture study. And you try to do a golden chest, which is all of those combined. Form, texture, and color. And that's why you kind of fell off a little bit. Then there's the saturation. The saturation is this really, really orangey color, and we find this on the outsides of all highlights. So just on the outside of any highlight, we're bringing in that orangey color. So not on the highlights were meant to be white. But the mid-tone, which is not really a mid-tone, it's still a highlight, but compared to the highlight, it's a mid-tone. That's the stuff that gets the yellow, the orangey yellow. And then I'm just going to spike this up with dodge tool. I don't know if I'll get away with it. All right, so when it comes to anything reflective, reflective areas have like a movement, like a trail of light just traveling across one region. Do you see that? It's kind of like a line of highlight. This is very, very exaggerated. Please do not do this, but it's just so I can show you this. Sometimes it does a little bit of that. It's not, it has to all be in the same direction. All right, everything that's on that line gets some of it. So this is very exaggerated. This is only for demonstration. Do not try this at home. All right, so it's a much less extreme version of this, but just so you can see. All right, it's all traveling in the same direction. But this is if this was made from solid gold, which it shouldn't be because it's just a chest. But I understand why you made it gold, because if this isn't a game, this is a game item, you have to show that this chest contains more loot than another chest of like a less important. So silver for the less important, and then bronze or whatever wooden chest, just plainly wooden chest. Okay, but if this is in an illustration unit, if this is something that's going to be in an illustration, don't confuse the fact that the gold is inside the chest, and it must be, you know, rendered as if the chest contained all the gold. So you got to draw the coins or the illusion of the texture of the coins on every individual coin. All right, this is an extreme version. Please do not try this at home. So what I can do is just dull it down a little bit. But before I started using the dodge tool, which is out here, I can just bring that down a great deal. This side doesn't get much of that. Okay, and this is not a reflection of the light. This is just like a nearby object reflection, so it could take a C shape just to represent the surrounding environment. So a little C shape like that of this version of the highlight, because it's in the dark area. Okay, and you can always just desaturate the highlight. So wherever the highlight traveled can instead be a very white version of that highlight, not a yellow version. Remember, whenever you use dodge tool, just straight follow it up with a sponge tool on desaturate. You don't want to be a noob. You don't want to keep everything saturated and gross and sparkly. An artist who depends too much on dodge tool has no idea how values climb in a reflective study, and they're hoping that dodge tool has all the answers, and it looks like it does. But dodge tool is very dangerous. You have to learn how these objects climb in a highlight, and that means you got to do some metallic studies, glass studies, all kinds of stuff will help prep you for that. A couple more outlines here and there. And this is just the outer edge of each curve, kind of like the molded edge, catching the light. Sometimes the chest will reflect on itself. Okay, make sure you have edges intact. We're talking about mechanical, metallic, hard structures against each other, so they're not fuzzy edges. So this little bit of fuzziness right here should have just been completely factored out. We're talking about hard, solid surfaces, so there's just zero space for fuzzy edges. You have to make sure everything is nice and sharp. Another thing that you would have learned in your texture study. See, that brings the attention right back towards the metal. Not so much the wood. Even if it's paint, really be very careful. And that would pretty much be it. Those are the suggestions I have to make this look a little bit more normal. Before, things were very dull, very yellow. Felt like they were just spray painted or there was a sepia tone on it. And now it's kind of a little bit more representational. I would push this into blue to help pull out the yellow. So yellow and orange, purple and yellow, blue and orange, they just don't mix. They're not a happy family. So that means that one kind of shows off the other, but if you mix them, they'll just result in a gray. And so if we push this over into blues and then desaturate, it'll really bring out the yellow. And it doesn't have to be a brown bark. Bark isn't always brown, especially after it's been sanded and conditioned and whatnot. So this will look a lot more like you know, a chest, like a very polished royal chest, if you have a little bit of that blue in there to make that yellow pop. You don't want everything to be so monochromatic all the time, and that'll help. So apply that everywhere. So that color I found, just go on color mode and apply it here. On 100%, and then apply it here. Okay? So all really, really awesome ways to kind of make stuff pop. And then finally we have the transition. So yellow in its like texture state transitions between different types of yellow. So over here we could have more of a orangey yellow, and back here we could have more of a green yellow. And they're all neighboring colors. So you don't always have to have these perfect yellows all across, because there will always be one area that's more shiny. And green is another way to cool down a yellow. You know, gray is a great way to cool down a yellow, but green is, of course, one of the ways. So just out here, I'm shifting everything into a green, so that over here, things can stay a little bit more orange. Oopsie. Okay. And then just deleting where I have. So this was a difficult study for you because you kept having to go back and balance all the wood and all the stuff. So you see that shift into green, what it kind of did? That's just another way to cool down the yellow. If you want to keep everything blue based, and that's fine too. Over here, this shouldn't be green. This shouldn't be green. This shouldn't be green. And then finally, you can really just push the values of anything that doesn't face the light. You can actually lower the values to be much darker. And all of these together are what you write down in your notes. And all of these together are what you attempt next time, so keep them in mind. So just pushing this, see that? Pushing it down into the shadows, desaturating it. I'm not sure about, maybe saturating and bringing in a bluer, you know, transition, like some sort of ambient color. But I would stick to a cool version, friendly cool version, which could be green or could be blue, you know, more of a blue presence, which would result in like a purpley, orangey red, something like that. Okay, so I'm just looking at the navigator when I try to assess this, because the navigator never lies. Write that back to me. The navigator never lies. So if it doesn't look good to you in the navigator, you can be sure that it's not looking good for everyone. Alright, and then there's the light kind of peeking through on this side, which I'll just bring in as a normal layer. And then there's the fuzz of the shadow. And then there's a fraction of that light for this side. This is all form study talk. None of this is optional. And if that's solid gold on the inside too, this is pretty much Trump's wig chest. Solid gold through and through. Tacky as fuck. Then you have to follow all the protocols. So cool down that shadow. And then this shadow is brighter because it faces forward. Cast shadow belongs to the object that receives it. Blah, blah, blah. And that's it. So lots of changes, but I hope it kind of helps you understand what's at stake when you're trying to combine all of these forms together and all of these textures together with minimal reference, or with reference that isn't really showing you like a real understanding of like the transitions of color, the behavior of a form, the texture, and the colors that each texture comes with. Okay, and I'm just finally desaturating this into white. Then there's the glare, but you're dealing with a white background, so a glare wouldn't really show through, but you can still try. You just grab, I just desaturated all the highlights into white, and then now I'm just throwing in this glare. And this glare is kind of like the icing on the top. Please don't start with the glare. The glare is the final little accessory. Don't start with the glare, please. Trump's wig chest, yes. Can his tiny hands even open it? No, well, they cannot. And if you darken the background, you will really be able to kind of get the most out of the glow. Okay, so before, after. So hope this helped you. Enjoy. Hope you reattempt this. For this piece, you've got purple versus blue, and obviously one is the primary, one is the secondary, but that doesn't mean the secondary is too weak. What I'm going to do is just throw a bunch of that secondary, and I'm going to erase where I know an edge has formed. Okay, all around the chin. Just over here. And then some areas get more highlight than others, so the upper lip here looks away from the secondary. This area here looks away from the secondary. This looks towards the secondary. All of this tilts away until it faces the secondary, and then we kind of merge all that down. And that's what your entire region should have started off as. The entire region here should have been painted with this solid color to remind you that this is one entire section that needs to have the secondary light source addressed if it's facing her. If it's behind her, then we're obviously only going to get the silhouette state, but this is all required. Right, and you having a glowy eye on it's just you're including a third light source, which is not a good idea at all. But a colored light source, the color of the light source is inherited by the object. So everything on this side, this can be a color layer. Whoopsie, no. This can be a color layer for anything illuminated, but everything on this side over here needs to have complete blue. It needs to be completely blue as all of this. And that's the only way you can kind of salvage what you're doing with this light environment. It's a dark scene. Typically, we're not supposed to be able to see what's inside a dark room. There isn't enough light to show it off. So what do? We kind of meet it halfway. We show enough light and have it mostly dark. I'm just going to sneak in some dodge tool to hurry past these critiques. More on anything that protrudes out. This should have been your starting setup. This should have been the work early on. This is how it should have looked. Then the whole cheek needs to have a radial approach to it, not just a single line. Any part of the cheek that looks towards that light source, any part of the chin, part of the eyelid over here, all of this eyebrow area. Oops, made a group. The nose, which is very reflective. Oh, good. All right. So I wanted to ask you guys really quickly, I'm not sure what the chances are that a neurologist or a neurosurgeon is in my audience, but I hope to get MRI imaging done soon for my back. And I'll make a special video about it very soon, and that I'll probably take down right after. I don't want it to be only about my medical conditions, but I was hoping that one of you guys, maybe your parent, is a neurosurgeon that could possibly just have a look at my MRIs, because everyone's stumped. My doctors don't seem to be giving me a solid answer. And I thought that, okay, I'm going to save this until I absolutely need it. But I need this out there. I'm going to just post it somewhere, a picture of my MRI for that one exact area in my back. And hopefully, I don't know, somehow, some way, someone sees it and can explain it. I'll try to post it on Reddit and then link it in the video. That way, you know, if there's someone out there who can interpret what the results are, I'm pretty sure I know what's going on, but if I can just have someone just directly look at my results, because I am at wit's end, and I need to be a bit more adamant with my doctors. And if I have like a solid result somewhere out there, somewhere, you know, someone who can provide a description of what they see, I can take it back to my doctor and kind of debate with him on whether or not I'm a candidate for surgery. So I'm just letting you guys know that that kind of video might be up soon. But I don't know, you know, hopefully out there. It's all about sharing information, right? This whole channel. So I thought maybe I could use it in this respect. Okay, so you see how much you can get out of a secondary light source. It's not going to be ideal to set it up so that you have only a slight little sliver visible, because at this point it's the most boring image. Nobody takes photography at night unless there's lights to take pictures of. Write that back to me. And if there's no light to take picture of here, then what are we doing exactly? And you made it seem like the light is coming from the top, from the bottom, where here the light's coming from the top down. So you need top-down lighting in this entire area. All right. You still have a lot of issues with this side. Basically, the primary is not the intrigue anymore. The secondary is the intrigue. So that means that we have a bit more of a need to exaggerate the secondary, so more glow. It's still not going to be as strong. It's strong in the painting. It's not strong in the universe, right? It's not strong in the universe of the painting. It's not strong in the light environment, but it's definitely strong enough for the painting. It serves the painting's need to show the character that you're drawing, because that's what light is doing. So before, after, just doing a little bit more to show off the character. You have a number of issues here that I can't go through. Rotation on the lip, visibility on the far side of the face, everything needs to be tucked in. You need a 3/4 view 14-day challenge done stat, and you need to stay away from masterpieces. You need to stay away from dark scenes unless you have a reference. I need to study separately ambient light source and secondary light source and bounce, especially with color on color in a separate sphere, floating, suspended form study. Before you try to combine all of that together into a single piece. You guys remember, fragmenting makes life easier. Fragmenting your learning process makes life much easier. So if you're not doing that, you're really just setting yourself up for failure every single time. It doesn't mean you cannot try that painting. You can try it eventually, but you're working today to be creative tomorrow. Write that back to me. That you're preparing to be creative. And if you're taking shortcuts, you're being creative today, and that makes no sense, because how could you possibly be creative and not have the tools to be creative? I don't get it. What are you being creative with? Only your mind? That's not enough. That's not enough. People don't care about, what you can see in your head. People want to see what something we can see, something tangible. Just because you see it for what it could be, like a mother's love for a kid, doesn't mean we're all entitled or we're all accepted to love it the same way. So raise that painting with good fundamentals so that everyone can see what you see. Do you understand me? Don't try to be creative today. I'm sorry. I'm just telling it like it is. If you don't like that, if you want to be mollycoddled or whatever the term is, polycoddled, I don't know. It's not going to help you improve. That's not how you improve. Please give up on that. Give up on your creativity for just a little while until you get those annoying studies out of the way and you can build some kind of experience. Anything. Just a day, at least a day of studying a texture just for the texture. Instead of, giving into the satanic urge to make it into a masterpiece. If you are currently doing a 14-day challenge and you needed to take a quote-unquote break, which is the piece we just looked at, you shouldn't be doing the challenge. It's a challenge. Challenging. It's challenging. It's not easy. If you need to take a break from a challenge, you lost the challenge. You failed the challenge. If you fail the challenge, you got to start it all over again. So please read over everything that I did in the Q&A section of the community tab on my website so you can understand what the 14-day challenge is all about, essentially. When it comes to portraits, only portraits. There's form study challenges, which I need to write, need to put more detail on out there. You need to do form study. Everyone has to do form studies. Everybody, everyone has to take the SATs. Everyone needs to do form studies. There's not a single student who has booked with me who I have allowed to continue studies without form studies. Form studies are a staple. Form studies are your basic laps. It's just squats and push-ups. It's not optional. And you need to do some form studies. It's not a learning style or a learning technique or whatever. You need to study form for the sake of form so that you can execute it properly when it's time to be creative tomorrow. All right? Everyone needs to do them. So I hope that is a little bit more of a call to really shut down your creative urge. If you want to be creative outside of your workspace. Have a workspace just to be creative and a workspace just for study, because if you mix the two, you're going to assume you can do the two in the same office. When it comes to me, I've obviously made the mistake of putting all my tools in my office. Now work and studies and creativity are all in one place, and I kind of have to readjust and rearrange my mind for creative hour. I don't want to have to do that. So I started moving over to my a dining table to sketch and enjoy, and couch to make it creative time, to separate the two mindsets from each other. One is more disciplinary, one is more free range, and you have to be able to separate that from each other, or else you're not going to build discipline. You're not going to have a faculty of your mind that's dedicated only to discipline. And if you don't have a faculty in your mind that is disciplined when it comes to studies, you will have really bad art, to put it simply. Actually, most of my art teachers encourage creativity. Yeah, I don't know why they. I mean, of course they want to bring out your creative voice, but everyone has one inherently. Everyone has a creative voice. Everyone wants to write something or say something. Everyone wants to tell a story. It's not me saying you don't have a right to your story. It's me saying if you want to get good and make it as realistic as possible so that people can believe the story and you can make it more graspable and easy to believe, then you got to study what makes something realistic. So right over here, I'm just giving the shark a little bit more expression as he looks at that hook. I'm not sure if he's scared or he's like, seriously kind of face, but I think this serves them all. So I'm radially just bringing down the shark forehead, kind of brow bone, to give him some expression. I like how you married it back into the anatomy of the shark. The shark itself doesn't really have any rotation on it, like the form isn't radial. So we need to do that. So that's going to look a little something like this. Start off with a bigger brush. And then erasing around there. And then we've got an edge right up here that the light can reach. So I'm going to make this into a lighten layer. Where are you? And then delete along this edge. What I'm doing is trying to find edges. This is all one big blob. This is all one big organic form study. And finding these edges is blocking in. We're providing more blocks than we really need so that the work is done. The work is done when you provide more blocks than you really need. Can anyone explain why that is? Why is the work done when we provide more? Why can't we just block in later? Why is it important to block in now? Right, just throwing a little cast shadow on the fin. I'll just extend it out here a little bit so that the shark feels more involved in its environment. And I'm going to disconnect that. And then I'm going to just bring in some bounce light by erasing that core shadow. Just like so. Just all the ambient bounce and the undersea kind of environment to create edges. Well, yes, that's why we block in. Good answer, but that's not why we block in more early time. That's not why we provide more blocks than we really need. I might just bounce just generally. Okay, and then deselect to control value sharing. That's a benefit of it. Reblocking makes details go away and return to low poly phase. Yes, if we block in all of our blocks from the very get-go, even more than we need, when we go to blend, we can decisively blend the extra ones, and the most important ones read instantaneously. Exactly. So we finish rendering. Essentially, the rendering is done once we are finished blending the ones we didn't need. Do you understand? So we block around curves as well. See how I blocked around this curve like that? And then I erased away as I needed after. And that way the ones that were supposed to stay, which we don't really have in this because it's a big blob, the ones that were supposed to stay are intact. And that means we didn't have to do more work. So if you stop seeing a shark, you'll start actually rendering it with the form it requires. If you stop seeing the object and start seeing the form instead. So just over here, I'm blocking more than I need. And this is all about your relationship. Blocking is all about your relationship with your brush. If you have a bad relationship with your brush, meaning you don't really understand when to use which brush, or you don't really think you need brushes, or brushes are a cheat, or whatever it could be, you're not really going to get into blocking in the right way. So provided more edges than I need. It's a general edge, and it's exactly what we need over here to give the shark more volume. And then there's all this extra business. Okay. So see how now the shark has more motion to it. It's got more of a three-dimensional shape. And this is not because I thought shark. I don't know what shark anatomy is. You probably thought you could move into, shark anatomy to determine, to make it look a little bit better, to determine where your mistakes are. No, it had nothing to do with the shark anatomy and everything to do with the missing blob studies in your life. So I'm just darkening along this cast shadow. That light is very strong. And then we're moving back to the before. And you can see what a simple blob study would have offered you. Just the radial descent into the shadow. The radial ascend into a highlight. Edges and cast shadows. This is all stuff that a form study offers you. None of this stuff is lost. I don't know if some of you think, okay, maybe my form study won't reveal to me everything I need to know. So you know what? Let me just skip the form studies and hope that I have enough of exposure to forms when I'm adding a subject to them. No. No. You have to separate the subject. It has to be solid form, just assessing form, that's it. Has to be. Okay, now I'm just adding that bounce light. Just a little bit of bounce light. Nothing too extreme or nothing that contests the primary up above. And again, this had nothing to do with a shark. That's the lesson I want you guys to learn today. This had nothing to do with studying a shark. I don't have to know what a shark does. I don't have to know what it looks like. The gestures and the anatomy, and that's when I really think about that stuff. This has to do with form. So I'm just radiating this bounce light to be a little bit more friendly. And I'm looking at my navigator. Why am I looking at my navigator? What did we say earlier about that? I'm trying to keep my terminator line intact. And you know what? This whole time I'm struggling with this goddamn cast shadow. This bounce light because the environment is not dark enough. What does the navigator never do? There is no shark. If a shark screams in the ocean, do we hear it? Navigator doesn't lie. Exactly. So I'm looking at it. I feel like it should be lighter because I'm looking at the navigator. I look at my painting and I think, hey, it doesn't need to be that dark. I look at my navigator and I'm like, this is not dark enough. That's because the navigator doesn't lie. All right? It's a quick step away from your canvas and you didn't even have to get up. Your lazy ass didn't have to get off your chair. God forbid we get up. All right? And then I'm just getting my Shift G and then just darkening up a little bit as I go. Then I will correct backward. Sorry about that. Okay, it's just a bit too bright. It needs to be more of an angular edge right here. And then so let's scroll all the way out and just show where all the light is coming from. And then adjust. And I think this is just as dark as it needs to be. It's just that you have a very defined, this very defined business going down here. It's not just one single value. It's just so many little values here that are not allowing the course. So I'm just extending what you had here downward. So you have one solid value. We're not crossing that much ocean yet. If we crossed a lot of ocean, then we'll see a gradient, but it's just like a sky gradient. It doesn't get that dark that fast. All right, so that's all the shadow we needed for that secondary to pop. And if you want to bring back your other units, go ahead. All right, so before, after, and then you have your little fishies. Okay, you can bring in some bounce light over here on the nose. I feel like that's a bit too dark. I don't think any, I forgot what this stuff is called, this light distortion thing. I forget what it's called when the light travels through an object and throws off the pattern of the light trapped inside. So the light off a swimming pool on a ceiling or something like that. This wouldn't happen on this side because this side is not facing the light that is transferring that much. Okay? And then the bounce light. Even if you wanted the bounce light, if you want it more eerie, keep bounce light at a low. If you want it brighter, bring back the bounce light. Okay. All right. So I wanted to select this piece because I want to show you what good character design presentation sheet looks like. It looks like this. Beautiful. No lines, solid values, good brushwork, beautiful gestures. Gray background, clean, 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 clean. No stupid extra little additions to make the character design presentation look good. This is the format you guys should be following for your submissions for this Thursday. For those who are doing a full illustration, a vertical illustration, then you obviously need to have the background value and the vertical canvas. And have all the components of the environment nearby. But remember, it's either full environment or zero environment. I don't want any bullshit in between. I don't want any stupid little shrubbery here and there. No, I want either a clean background that looks like this or a full illustration, and that's it. It's either, this is all for your portfolio, so don't mess around with these rules because these are universal presentation portfolio rules that will impress your employer, impress anyone looking at your portfolio. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. This is exactly what it should be. Nice, clean background value. Okay, beautiful job, whoever did this. I do recommend you have some cast shadows though. And you're using the same size block everywhere, and that's throwing off the contrast. I mean, that's throwing off the detail. And you need to work on your contrast just a bit, though I really like what you did with the horns. The contrast down here on the feet is throwing off the focal point. So focus on the top part of the T of the body, and make sure the lower pieces are a little bit more dark. That'll help distribute focus a little bit better. And saturation goes as well. So saturation on the lower regions here should not be comparable to the saturation up here. All right. And try to throw a cast shadow. That's allowed to create the feeling of space. It's not really making the painting look any better. But it's not making the character look any better painted, but it does make the overall image of the presentation even better. You can have a nice, clean, crisp, low gradient cast shadow on the floor. Same with the challenge submissions. Beautiful job. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions about any of the submissions we saw today? Anything at all? Any of this stuff? It's a do-over for me. You can just erase your environment and just have a clean background. You don't have to. You don't have to have a background, guys. If you choose no background, make it nice and clean like this. Clean, 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 clean. It's called refraction. Yes, thank you. Shark shows it to be much more massive now. Caustics. Oh, right, right. Actually, the shark is kind of deep enough that the reflection on its back shouldn't be so clear. It kind of feels like it's pretty close to the boat. The spare nibs. Alright. Any, it does look a little bit photo bashed. Maybe the texture overlay, but it doesn't seem photo bashed. Just seems like, yeah. Istebrak, how would you go about creating bioluminescent beings? So, bioluminescent beings are glowing from the inside out, so you treat them as a light source. Some areas will be hotter, meaning more brighter than other areas. So you can obviously start with any extremities. Extremities can be bright. Or you can start with the main, branch of the character, like the spine out, to be bioluminescent, and then the extremities to be cool. You can't have one big glowy being, or else it'll just look like a big glowing alien or angelic character. That means that you would just have one big human-shaped light, right? So you gotta dim the character to make it visible. So to make a bioluminescent character, you gotta dim them and choose only some areas to glow inside out. No cast shadows. You don't cast a shadow on a light. No, there's no such thing as cast shadow on a light. A light source is energy that is emitting outwards, meaning it doesn't get cast shadows. It is breaking the shadow completely. The shadow is just absence of light, so it's illuminating the area that is dark. Cast shadow is not a fabric that you throw over everything. It's not wallpaper. So there's no such thing as casting a shadow on a light source. And if your bioluminescent character is glowing inside out, which it is, then it does not have any cast shadows cast on it. So no nose cast shadows. Everything is glowing. Everything is diffused. You only have some indicators here and there showing that they have a face. If they're part human and they're about to explode and they're glowing from the inside out, and hence the bioluminescence, then of course you have to push and pull a little bit with the universal light source showing them off. But they would still be visible in their about to explode state. If it was nighttime, you would just see the light glowing inside out and some indication of the eyes and the nose and all of that. So it's a very general question. Yeah. Would darkening the background on the chest also darken environment reflections on it? On the chest. So would darkening the background on the chest also darken environment reflections on it? Depends on the light source. If we're talking about a light source from a torch and the person just found the chest, that means that the light source is going to be more sharp, more nearby. Cast shadows will be sharper and longer and more distributed and sporadic. If it's universal, cast shadow is pretty close to the object, and brightness will be will show more midtones. So universal shows off more midtones. So yes, your midtone range would decrease significantly. And that means that you will have less orange, more cool values, and the torch light that is revealing it, that it has darkened the background or has not been bright enough to lighten the background, would only show off some of the rims and some of the edges, some extreme reflections here and there of the gold, and the accent highlights of the gold. And the glow back, of course, and the glow, the bloom. As for even gold needs a midtone. Gold doesn't glow. Remember that. It's not a light source. It still needs a universal light source to reveal its midtones. Do I teach anatomy, or do I think anatomy is not important? No, I covered anatomy today with the shoulders and the, and the gesture. So it's not so much, I don't teach medical diagrams of, yeah, in that case, yes, those are useless. We're not performing surgery. We're not surgeons. We are not interested in every single topographical difference between the muscle groups. We're interested in general muscle groups that are functional and applicable to character design. How to start material studies. Start with the hardest material. Start with glass and metal. And then go for rock, and then go for sand, and then go for fabric, and then go for shiny fabric, then matte fabric, and then go for skin textures, go for asphalt, all the easy stuff to the end. Don't start easy, start hard. Can there be a clean, simple background but not a flat color? That sounds like it's in between, so your judgment call there. Bounce light and metallic materials. Any advice on how best to implement it? There's no bounce light on metallic materials because bounce light is illuminating shadows. If it's reflective, it's metallic, and that means that it's going to reflect the nearby environment even more. So much so that any bounce light on it, if it had been matte, would have been diffused or not visible anymore because it's already so bright in that region. So shadows in a reflective area have pictures in them. It's like a mirror reflection. So you can probably see your face in your phone when your phone is off, right? But where's the bounce light? You can't see it because that bounce light is overflooded with the picture it has reflected. So remember that metallic materials are going to have to learn how to distort the picture of the surrounding environment on the metallic surface. I made a comment on the Google Plus post regarding how the eye of the shark shouldn't be a pure white value. Is that correct? Yeah, it should be a little bit darker, actually. Yes, it is correct. So let me amend that. Something like leaving the whitest white at the very height of the shark, just there. And also blur away at the pupil. It's just a little bit too sharp, and all that. Quick question. If you get majorly sick and a deadline is coming up, what do you do? Do you try to finish the project or meet it, or tell your client to wait a bit? Sickness is not something anyone can control. So if you're talking to a client and they're reasonable and you agreed on a deadline early on, depending on how much time they gave you, so if you had like a 3-day window to complete it and you got sick at that point, that's a good excuse. But if you had a 3-week window, if you've been sick for 3 weeks, you shouldn't even be working if you're capable of getting that sick. And if it's the deadline is 2 days away and you got sick and you have nothing done and you've had 3 weeks to do it, you have only yourself to blame, and you're gonna have to talk to your client about that. But if you're mostly done, you send them screenshots, you're good at communicating, you let them know about the situation, there's no reason why they can't be reasonable about it. But if you send them a screenshot 3 days from due date, you had 3-week window to complete the project, and you send them working lines, they have the right to be mad at you. Istebrak question. I love you. I love you too, Caroline. Adding a rim light to the character design, is that a good idea? Yeah, you can do that. Make sure the rim light doesn't flood the detail. It's a character design, so you should be showing off the character's costume. Rim light tends to be mistreated and abused by students trying to bring in more volume on the character, anything ambient light or anything like that. So they tend to flood out the detail. So if there's like a cool detail on the buttons of a jacket or a waistcoat, then that bounce light is just going to hide it, and you're not going to be showing real info. You're just throwing a big stupid light on it and getting away with it, just like the cast shadow. It may look nice for the greater picture, but individually, what the heck is a modeler supposed to do with that? If you're sending the character design over to a modeler, what is he supposed to do with that? That entire area is covered with a crazy shadow or crazy light or some stupid glow. You can at least do it in a separate layer. That's the point of a character design setup. I showed him your channel so he can get better. That confuses him and I don't know how to explain it. Artistic beauty standards. There are universal beauty standards, so ask him, what are your favorite characters? Tico, just ask your friend, what are your favorite characters from which movies? And show him that those characters all follow and adhere to the universal beauty standards. That should be enough proof for him. You know, as character design artists, as illustrators, we have to learn how to paint a protagonist. And like it or not, people are cast for, actors are cast, characters are designed along universal beauty standards. Everyone wants the underdog to be beautiful. Everyone wants the protagonist to be beautiful in some way or another. Universal beauty standards are actually really flexible. Oh, I love the concept, stupid glow. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining. Let's recap on the announcement. So go to istebrak.com to join our community. Click on the little Google Plus icon to join. And if you are curious about whether or not you can join the challenge now that's been up, you cannot. It's too late. It's due in 2 days. And if I see that you posted working stuff 2 days ago, I'm going to be really mad. You should have been posting stuff all the way back since the first announcement. So announcement is right here. The Ancient Weapon Character Design Challenge. If you want to debrief yourself on the you know, the write-up and the narrative excerpt that I wrote, then you can find it on the resource pack on the community tab of my website. If you have questions on the 14-day challenge, go to the community tab and scroll down. I've recently published a Q&A on everything to do with the 14-day challenge. If there are more questions, please ask me on the discussion category. Scroll down to find my post, or just make a post, make a discussion post on the wall. If you want to join, read the rules, please. A lot of rules have been changed up. Even if you are posting for a challenge, even if it's for a challenge, you cannot post one single sketch every single day. It will be deleted instantly. And repeat offenders will be prosecuted. If you like what you see here, if you like this channel, you want to support it, go on Patreon and become a watcher. Or if you want an alternative to private tutoring or a little bit more of a specific kind of involvement in the community, a little bit more like a, I guess, involvement in the community, then there's the Discord, the Patreon only Discord. Don't know why this is not loading. We currently have a challenge up right now. It is the weapon challenge, but it's a bit more open for, you know, for the options that you have to design for the character. It's not working. And that's it, I think. Yeah, that's about it. Let me just find exactly what the due date is this Thursday. So this Thursday is the due date. It's going to be a 2-hour session, hopefully, for everyone's post. And after this due date, after this critique hour, I will choose my favorite submissions, and they will go up on a poll. In the poll, you get to decide which, you know, you guys can vote who has the best post, and the winner will get a reward. They'll either get tutoring sessions with me, portfolio reviews and all of that. They'll get a brush set if they want to. If they need a tablet, they will get a tablet. If they need a portrait studio, they'll get portrait studio. Whatever I can offer, I will offer them. Just depends on what they currently have and what they don't have. But that's absolutely it. Thank you everyone for joining today. I will see you guys on Thursday. Submit. Make sure that you are not posting your final draft after 5 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, or else I will not look at it. Post it early. Your due date is pretty much Wednesday. All right, guys. Bye. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye.